There's something eerie about attics. They're the part of the house we try to forget, filled with cobwebs, forgotten memories, and things we never really wanted to deal with. That's exactly where the story begins. You were cleaning out your attic, a mundane, ordinary task. Dust swirled in the dim light as you sifted through boxes of old photos, broken lamps, and things you didn't even know you owned. That's when you found it. It was tucked away behind a pile of mildewed books and an old suitcase. A vintage radio, unlike anything you'd ever seen. It was beautiful in a strange way. Polished wood, intricate knobs, and strange symbols carved into the sides. It didn't belong with the rest of the junk. It looked important. You don't know why, but you decided to take it downstairs. Maybe you were just curious, or maybe it was something else. Something pulling you toward it. Downstairs. You wiped away the thick layer of dust and plugged it in. The radio buzzed to life with a low hum. Static filled the room, harsh and grating, but somehow mesmerizing. You fiddled with the knobs, trying to tune it to a station. Then it happened. Amidst the static, you heard it. A voice. Soft at first, almost lost in the noise. You leaned closer, straining to hear. Hello. Your name. Your heart stopped. You sat back, staring at the radio. Did it just say your name? No, it couldn't have. You laughed nervously, shaking your head. Radios don't talk to people. But then the voice spoke again, louder this time. Yes, I'm talking to you. Don't act surprised. You brought me here. After all, you froze. The voice was calm, almost conversational, but there was something off about it. Something that made your skin crawl. I've been waiting a long time to meet you, it said. You tried to turn it off, twisting the knobs and pulling at the plug, but nothing worked. The radio stayed on, the voice growing sharper. Don't bother, it said, almost amused. You can't get rid of me that easily. You backed away, your mind racing. What was this thing? Some kind of elaborate prank? But how could it know your name? The voice continued. I know everything about you. Your secrets, your regrets, the things you buried deep inside. Shall I list a few? And then it started. It recited things only you could know, things you'd never told anyone. Your first big mistake, the lies you told to cover it up, the guilt that kept you awake at night. Every word cut deeper, like the voice was peeling back the layers of your soul. Stop it, you shouted. The voice paused, as if considering your plea. Then it laughed, a cold, hollow sound that echoed through the room. I'm not here to torment you, it said. At least not yet. But I do need your help. If you don't listen, things will get unpleasant. You didn't respond. You couldn't. Good, the voice said. Now, here's what you're going to do. In exactly 5 minutes, someone will come to your door. No matter what they say, no matter how desperate they sound, you must not let them in. Your blood ran cold. Why? You asked, barely able to get the word out. The voice didn't answer. The static grew louder, filling the room with an unbearable screech. You covered your ears, but it didn't help. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the noise stopped. The radio was silent. You glanced at the clock. 5 minutes. At first, you thought about ignoring the warning. Whatever this thing was, it couldn't control you. But as the minutes ticked by, doubt crept in. What if it was telling the truth? Then came the knock. It was soft at first, almost hesitant. You froze, staring at the door. Another knock, louder this time. Please. A voice called from the other side. I need help. It was a woman's voice, trembling and desperate. Open the door. He's coming. Please. You stepped closer, hand hovering over the doorknob. But then the radio crackled to life again. Don't open the door, the voice roared. You stumbled back, heart pounding. The knocking turned into pounding, frantic and violent. The woman's cries grew louder, more desperate. He's going to kill me, she screamed. Please, I'm begging you. Tears filled your eyes. Every instinct screamed at you to help her, but the voice from the radio was deafening. If you open that door, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. The pounding stopped. Silence. You stood there, trembling, waiting for something, anything. The seconds dragged on, each one heavier than the last. Finally, the radio spoke again, softer this time. Good. You made the right choice. But this isn't over. Before you could respond, the lights flickered. The room went dark. When the lights came back on, the radio was gone. In its place was a folded piece of paper. Your hands shook as you picked it up. It was a photo of you, standing in the attic, holding the radio. But there was something else in the photo. In the corner, barely visible, was a figure. Tall, shadowy, with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce through the image. At the bottom of the photo was a single sentence, written in blood-red ink. Next time, you might not listen. You dropped the photo and ran upstairs, hoping, praying, that the radio was gone. But as you reached the attic, you heard it again, a faint crackle, and then the voice, whispering, "I'm still here." The whisper lingered in the air like a taunting chill, sending a shiver down your spine. You stood frozen at the attic door, your heart hammering in your chest. The faint crackling of the radio grew louder, and with it, the voice became clearer, more insidious. "I told you, didn't I? This isn't over." You slowly pushed the attic door open. The light bulb overhead flickered weakly, casting long, warped shadows across the cluttered space. And there it was, the radio, sitting exactly where you'd found it, as if it had never been moved. But something was different. The symbols etched into it would seem to glow faintly now, pulsing like a heartbeat. The air in the attic felt heavy, thick, as though it was alive and pressing down on you. "Come closer," the voice urged, softer this time, almost seductive. Against every ounce of your better judgment, you stepped forward. Your feet felt like they were moving on their own, drawn toward the radio. The closer you got, the louder the voice became, until it was the only thing you could hear. "You did well tonight," it said, "but there's more work to be done." You shook your head, trying to resist. "What do you want from me?" you demanded, your voice cracking. The radio hissed, static crackling like laughter. "I want you to listen." Suddenly, the attic seemed to shift around you. The walls stretched and bent, and the air grew colder, biting into your skin. The radio's glow intensified, and the voice became deeper, darker. "Do you remember the man on the bridge? The one you saw that night?" Your stomach dropped. You did remember. It was years ago, a rainy night. You had been driving home late, the storm pounding against your windshield, making it almost impossible to see. That's when you saw him, a man standing on the edge of the bridge, soaked and shivering. You had hesitated, debating whether to stop, but fear got the better of you, and you drove past, pretending you hadn't seen him. The next day, you heard the news. A man had jumped from the bridge that night. You had buried that memory deep, told yourself there was nothing you could have done. But now, the radio was dredging it back up, dragging it into the light. "He remembers you," the voice said. "He's been waiting." The attic filled with a low, guttural sound, like someone crying. It was coming from behind you. You spun around, your breath hitching. At first, you saw nothing but shadows. But then, in the corner of the attic, something moved. A figure stepped into the dim light. A man dripping wet, his clothes torn and his face pale as death. His eyes locked onto yours, filled with pain and fury. "Why didn't you help me?" he rasped, water spilling from his mouth. You stumbled backward, your back hitting the wall. I couldn't," you stammered. "I didn't know what to do." The man took a step closer, water pooling around his feet. The smell of damp earth and decay filled the room. "You left me," he said, his voice rising. "You left me to die." The radio crackled again, the voice cutting through the tension. "This is your penance," it said. "You will face what you've done." Before you could react, The man lunged toward you, his cold, wet hands wrapping around your throat. You gasped, clawing at him, but his grip was unrelenting. His eyes burned with a hatred that felt ancient, otherworldly. Just when you thought it was over, the radio let out a deafening screech. The man's grip loosened, and he dissolved into a spray of water, vanishing into the shadows. You collapsed to the floor, coughing and gasping for air. The radio's voice returned, calm and cold. "You'll see more of them soon," it said. "Every choice you've made, every soul you've wronged, they're coming." Tears streamed down your face. "Why are you doing this to me?" The voice chuckled. "Because you brought me here. And now, you're mine." The attic door slammed shut behind you, and the light bulb flickered out. You were plunged into darkness, with only the faint glow of the radio to keep you company. The voice whispered one last thing before the static faded. "This is just the beginning.